Let's talk about The Witcher 3. If you click this video, then you likely know what this game is. Just in case you don't, The Witcher 3 is an ARPG released by CD Projekt Red in 2015. So why'd I fall in love with this game? Well, Bethesda is known for their worlds, Larian is known for basically everything at this point, and CD Projekt Red, well, their reputation has undeniably been sullied in recent years. And unlike most people, I'm not just gonna forgive them after a decent Netflix show, and a DLC that finally met the standards they set on release. But I'm not just a hater, a matter of fact, I'm mostly gonna be praising them in this video. CD Projekt Red knows how to make a world. Not like Bethesda, where the world is often far greater than the sum of its parts, but a world built on its characters and its story. Cyberpunk 2077's Night City is beautiful. I mean, at this point, it's just a glorified RTX benchmarking tool, but this graphical fidelity isn't the only thing that brings this city to life. I mean, it definitely doesn't hurt, but Night City isn't Night City because of the neon lights. Night City is Night City because of the people. They feel real. They feel like they continue living even after the credits roll. The Witcher 3 is definitely not lacking in this quality, which in a way will be the subject matter of this video. The characters, more than just NPCs, the people. With this in mind, there's a specific questline I want to look at, but even before that, we need to talk about Velen, No Man's Land. Velen is the stage upon which these stories are set. It's characterized as a war-torn land where the quality of life is below average, even for the Middle Ages. I think this scene with the Eldermen of Downwarren perfectly characterizes Velen.
'Tis our pact. You're a stranger, you don't know life here. It's honest pay for their protection.
So, all those ears in the woods.
Put it out your mind, master. You soon be leaving and we must tarry on, our young'uns and their young'uns after 'em. No gods nor masters watch over Velen. The land is no man's. He who wants to survive must seek his own protectors.
The war with Nilfgaard, or the Black Ones, has definitely taken its toll on the region. It's important to keep this in mind when looking at the people and the stories taking place here, as almost everything in some way links back to this war. Of course, there's more to Velen than just the war. Geographically, Velen is no paradise. It's known to be covered in swamps and bogs, one of which we will be visiting later when Geralt has an encounter with the lovely ladies of the woods. Velen is a direct contrast to the open area of White Orchard. The overall atmosphere of Velen is one of despair. I think it's best characterized by our first Ciri flashback. The weather, the time of day, the mini-narrative all came together to truly embody the idea of Velen. Ciri escaping from the Crookback Bog, running from the wild hunt, tired, wounded, runs into a child named Gretka. She was lost in the woods, separated from her father. We encounter and dispatch the figure named the King of Wolves, who was really just a generic werewolf. After that, Ciri ended up with the Baron of Velen. So, pretty average Velen encounter, I'd say. Well, it's The Witcher. There's always just a little bit more to the story. It turns out Gretka's dad's intentions weren't exactly in her favor. The story we're given is that she was with her dad, and he told her to follow this trail of treats until she'd had her fill. Then presumably she'd go back to him and they'd head on home. But she saw a butterfly and ended up getting lost. Turns out though, this trail of treats she was told to follow was actually the trail to the Crookback Bog, home of the lovely ladies of the woods known to eat children. Of course they didn't mind eating Ciri, but that was more of an elder blood thing. Point is, her parents were sending her to the bog with the expectation that she wouldn't return, which apparently isn't uncommon around these parts. A lot of the kids in the bog probably weren't orphans, just unwanted. So yeah, Velen is pretty sad. So now that we've characterized the setting a bit, let's now talk about the questline of this video. Philip Strenger, the Baron of Velen, with the moniker the Bloody Baron. I consider this man to be one of the best written characters in games. It's really amazing how real he feels. But like I said, this is where CD Projekt Red tends to shine. So let's really talk about this guy. Strenger is a veteran, known to have fought in many wars on the side of the Northern Realm Temeria. After being wounded in one especially brutal battle, he was tended to by a woman named Anna. He would go on to ask this woman to marry him, and they had a daughter named Tamara. And of course after that, they went on to live happily ever after, and nothing bad ever happened. Yeah, no. The Bloody Baron was rarely home. Battle after battle, and being separated from his family, the realities of war definitely took its toll on the man. and he turned to alcohol. This became a trait not only in war, but even when he was home. I have a feeling his wife wasn't too happy about this, considering sometime into the marriage, while the Baron was away, his wife ended up running away. She left a note saying she didn't love him, and she was leaving him for a man she'd known from childhood, a man she was having an affair with for the past 3 years. The Baron then set out to bring them home, but when he laid eyes on the man that was plowing his wife for the past 3 years, he kinda lost it, and then murdered the man in a rage. You can imagine his wife Anna wasn't too pleased with this. In anger, she tried to stab him. She failed. After that, the Baron ended up getting quite physical with her, and here is where their relationship got physically abusive. After the Third Nilfgaardian War, Strenger and his unit, tired and defeated, found Crow's Perch, abandoned by its previous lord. Strenger took the title Baron and decided to back the Nilfgaardians, most likely realizing the futility of resistance. That brings us to the year 1272, and with the added context of who the Baron is, let's talk about this quest. After our arrival to Velen, we find out Ciri had an encounter with some witches and the Baron of the region. It's due to this we'll seek out the Baron, Philip Strenger. When we arrive, he's having a meeting with the Nilfgaardians, and he eventually tells us about Ciri. This is where we had that initial Ciri flashback, but he doesn't tell us everything. In return for information on Ciri, the Baron wants us to find his wife and daughter that apparently went missing. Geralt takes the offer, of course, lacking the context we have. He investigated Anna's room and found signs that there was a struggle. The Baron acted surprised, proclaiming that he was drunk the night it happened and didn't remember anything. Geralt had also found a medallion and went to seek out the goat-loving Peller to investigate. Here he learned the purpose of the medallion was to ward off evil spirits, a curious detail. Geralt also learned of the Baron's abusive tendencies and of Anna's miscarriage. Sadly, this child was buried with no grave or ceremony, not even a name, and ended up becoming a botchling. So after seeing the Peller, we return to Crow's Perch, but it's not looking too good. Yeah, so fire. I'd actually thought the Baron is the one who set the place aflame while he was intoxicated, but it was actually a lightning strike, so pretty unlucky. And after saving some horses, we confront the Baron and did something I'd say a lot of us found quite satisfying, especially after the recent revelations. The Baron admitted he'd lied to us. On the night his wife and daughter ran away, he and his wife had a fight. A bad one. And this is when Anna apparently miscarried. But there's actually more to that story, I'll get into it later. After a little chat with the Baron, to find his family, we needed to either turn the horribly deformed fetus, botchling, into a lubberkin, which would actually lend us aid, or we could kill the botchling. Naturally, I chose the route of lifting the curse and turning this thing into a lubberkin, and I must say, the botchling is fucking hideous, man. Like, seriously. And you'd think it actually looked better when it turned into a lubberkin, but it's still just as freaky looking, man. There's actually some pretty interesting folklore behind the creature, found in both Slavic and Scandinavian cultures. Pretty interesting stuff. After the botchling became a lubberkin, it eventually led us to a fisherman and his family, where we found out a little bit more about Anna's issues with dark spirits. More importantly, we got information about where to find the Baron's daughter, Tamara, the city of Oxenfurt. Oxenfurt is one of the two large cities in The Witcher 3. The other is Novigrad, located in the northern parts of Velen. So I actually originally thought Oxenfurt was also in Velen, but it's actually in Redania under the rule of King Radovid. When we arrive at the city, we see another result of the Nilfgaardian War. Oxenfurt was locked down by Radovid in an effort to limit the number of refugees entering the city. Of course, being a master tactician, I just swim across the river. On visiting Tamara, we make a far more important discovery. This absolute darling. But in all seriousness, Tamara wasn't too thrilled to learn that the Baron had sent us to find her. Hoping to find her mother, she had joined the Church of the Eternal Fire, which was a group of human elitists who weren't too fond of magic or anything to do with it. Tamara had specifically joined the Witch Hunters. We also learned some more about Anna's miscarriage, and Tamara seems to believe it was due to the Baron's abuse, which is pretty understandable. But in general, Tamara was in good health and had no intention of returning to her father. When we told the Baron of this, he was clearly distraught. He'd really expect his wife and daughter to return. He claimed he'd changed. And right here, we're gonna put a quick pause on the Baron's story, because we need to visit the Ladies of the Woods. The Baron's questline is heavily connected to this one, and won't conclude until we progress it. So earlier we talked about Gretka and the Trail of Treats. Well, I decided to follow it and eventually found this cabin in the swamp. This was after a folly with the sorceress Kira Metz, but that's a story for another day. Upon arrival to the cabin, we found 5 orphans and an old woman called Gran. She wasn't too fond of us being there and wouldn't give us any information about Ciri. One of the orphans mentioned another child named Johnny who might have information, and after a quick game of hide and seek, we're told where to find him. We find him, but it turns out he's actually a godling. Godlings are peaceful creatures, though can be a bit mischievous, but they're about as harmful as an 8-year-old. Unfortunately, Johnny lost his voice, and after aiding him with the retrieval, we questioned them about Ciri. And I must say, this godling is definitely one of my favorite characters in the entire game. Just listen to this kid.
Thank you for this, noble whoever you are. Long be your life.
Hang on a minute. I helped you, now you help me.
Would you turn this beautiful act of altruism into a banal bartering of favors?
I'm looking for a young, ashen-haired woman. See anyone like that?
Did I ever? Remember it as if it were yesterday. Soon as I woke, I went to empty my bowels. My favorite part of the day. Defecating to the sunrise. Downright glorious.
After this, he agreed to convince Gran to let us speak to the ladies of the woods. And after some convincing, we finally talked to them Muriel to face. Here, they give us a quest, the Whispering Hilic. This quest has caused quite a bit of debate in the Witcher community, so let's talk about it. The village of Downwarren is facing some issues. An evil spirit is tormenting the village, and naturally, the crones send us there to go sort it out. We find this abomination in the heart of a tree. It was sealed there for some reason and started acting up. And here comes the decision. It tells us that the children in the bog are in danger. And they are. The Trail of Treats is meant to lead children to the bog where they would stay for a while, presumably to fatten them up. And after a certain amount of time, they would eventually get eaten by the crones. This is where Gretka was supposed to end up had she not been saved by a butterfly. Velen being such an unforgiving place, I'd imagine more than one of these orphans were sent there because they were unwanted. Of course, sending them there would be more or less sentencing them to death, but whether or not that is commonly known is unclear. Are these parents knowingly sending their kids to die? I mean, it's pretty bad either way, but still. So the spirit offers to free the children. The huge debate is over the outcome, but before we discuss that directly, we need to once again talk about the Bloody Baron, Philip Strenger, and his wife. It turns out Gran, the caretaker of the kids in the bog, is actually Anna Strenger, the Bloody Baron's wife. But how did she end up in the service of the witches? I mean, lovely ladies of the woods. You need to understand, Anna hates her husband, genuinely detests the man after he killed her extramarital lover, is one way to put it. This was the catalyst for a lot of the toxicity in their marriage. It's even said she tried to unalive herself and the Baron on occasion. So you can imagine she wasn't too happy when it turned out she was pregnant. She didn't want this kid, and abortion clinics probably weren't super common back in the day, so she turned to the crones. Now, she was probably expecting some quick spell to make the baby disappear, but the ladies of the woods weren't exactly that nice. They basically weakened her body and forced her to have a miscarriage. They then marked her with a seal on her hand that would cause her a great deal of pain when activated. The deal she made was that she would work in service of the crones for a year, and this seal was to ensure she upheld her side of the bargain, though I doubt they actually intended to let her go after a year. The reason why it's important for you to know this now is because the decision you will make at the Whispering Hilic will have a pretty severe effect on the outcome of Anna and Philip's story. So in talking about whether or not to save the orphans of the bog, we must look at the outcomes. If we choose not to save the kids, the issue that Downwarren was facing is resolved. After this, we gain information from the crones, lovely ladies of the woods, and can return to the bog to rescue Anna with the Baron later on. Unfortunately, Anna has lost her mind. Not because of some spell or a curse or anything, but just the horrors she witnessed, likely the children getting eaten. She seemed beyond saving, at least for the time. The Baron vowed to never drink again and take her to a healer in the Great Blue Mountains. Their daughter Anna resumed her service to the Church of the Eternal Fire. If we choose to do the ritual, free the evil spirit, and save the children, the issue that the village of Downwarren is facing is seemingly resolved, but after the questline ends, we can return to find that the village had been burned down, and all the people in there killed presumably by the spirit. As for the fate of the Baron and his wife, well, Because the kids escaped on her watch, the crones decided to curse her by turning her into a water hag. And after a quick chat with Johnny, we can attempt to lift the curse. If we fail to lift the curse, Anna would immediately die. If we were successful, she would be transformed back into a human being. This time of sound mind, she says farewell to her husband and daughter, saying she was happy to see them together, but would always die after. Once again, Tamara would return to her duties with the Eternal Fire. Philip Stringer, the Bloody Baron, on the other hand, losing his wife and daughter, supposedly while drunk and having nothing to live for anymore, unalives himself. Yeah, it's pretty dark. The debate now becomes, is the innocence of 5 orphans worth the lives of all the villagers of Downwarren, the Baron, and his wife? Personally, I usually end up saving the kids every single time, but I spoke to different people and they all had different point of views. I will say though, the vanilla ending to this questline would likely not see Geralt save the children. Based on his character, it's quite doubtful he would have trusted the evil spirit, and likely would have put it down right then and there. This questline was the story of the Bloody Baron of Velen, Philip Stringer. He was a vile man, undoubtedly. He was a drunk and he was an abuser, but he wasn't evil. When Ciri and Gretka actually went to him, he showed kindness and helped them both, which is a rarity here in Velen. And his wife Anna, in a lot of ways, was the victim of his alcoholism. And in others, she was a cog in the wheel of the marriage's dysfunction. I'm in no way trying to defend Philip Stringer or any of the actions that he did, but it's not black and white. And that's what makes this questline amazing. It forces you to really think and question things. Your sense of morality is tested. And while I've played dozens of quests in quite a few RPGs, this questline always stands out. It stands out because more than anything else, it feels real. These people, they feel real despite it being a fantastical setting. Everything that happens in this story could have happened in real life. The story felt human. And that's why this questline made me fall in love with The Witcher 3. Thanks for watching. Alright, so you made it to the end of the video. Good job. Not everyone makes it to the end of the video, so you're pretty much in the top 1% if you're hearing this. And since you got all the way here and hopefully you enjoyed it, clicking that red button down there doesn't hurt. If you want to see more content like this, will probably help with that. With that being said, hope you have a good day. This has been the Evernight Writer, riding off into the sunset. That's like my new catchphrase at the end of every video. I'm going to say, this has been the Evernight Writer, riding off into the sunset. So yeah, get used to hearing that one. That's of course if you're sticking around, which, again, if you're here, I don't know why you're not clicking the red button at this point, but no pressure, I guess.